Alright, I recorded the talking section.
Perfect.
And let's join and let's play. But yeah, the Alchemy Pro Tour was... The Alchemy Arena Pro Tour was pretty weird. Because for Alchemy, the issue of like not knowing what's gonna happen was even bigger than during like anything else during standard or historic. Like with Alchemy there was nothing. And honestly, I played the Mardu midrange deck during that tournament. I feel like this is going to be a mulligan with 5 lands and not much.
Yep.
This seems acceptable as I have pieces and spells. I'll put back a Steam Vents. Do you agree?
Yeah. Yeah.
Good. But yeah, I honestly like we didn't even know that mono white was a deck during that tournament. Since then the metagame thing breakdown comes and it says that it's 20 something percent mono white, and you were like, whoa, oh shit, that's a deck.
Yeah, I don't think we knew until the last week or something, and just by some sort of luck, we just came upon that.
Pretty unfortunate that we don't have a turn 1 movement against the elf.
Yeah, this is certainly where the matchup can get tricky. Let's see. So what this would be a spot where I ask like what cards are in the opponent's hand, like why do they cast Oath of Nissa here, for example,
All right, so
and this would give me a lot of information.
Yeah, we know that it's not Lair of the Hydra. It is not Kiora, most likely, unless my opponent is a really big card against Spell Pierce, but that's... I think we can assume it's not Kiora, not Troll.
Yep.
Then yeah, that's what we know. No Kiora, no Troll, no Lair of the Hydra.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's where I'd make the first assumption, and then I'd be like, okay, like maybe they have second elf. They probably are unlikely to have Wolfwillow Haven, because if they have Wolfwillow Haven, they would sequence differently. So that's the other thing you can note. And then I'd be like, okay, they're certain to have a payoff among Karn, Storm, and Cavalier, probably 2, because it's really hard to have combinations that don't involve at least one of those, and maybe 2.
Yeah, they kept a hand. They kept a 7 too, right?
Yep.
They kept a 7, so they obviously have payoffs in their hand from Monk's Karn, Cavalier, Storm. They reveal an Elvish Mystic and play an Elvish Mystic.
Yeah, so they can't have another elf in hand. They can't have Lair. They can't have Oath if they attack. So their hand has to be lands, Karns, Cavaliers, and Storms. That's the only cards in their range, I think.
True. Yeah, I mean, that's all true. It does narrow like pretty strongly. It like narrows down to a pretty small range actually, after just a few simple plays. If you think about it consciously. Chat says, so we're fucked. Well, maybe we're fucked. So my options right now here are play a Ledger Shredder or cast an Opt. If I cast an Opt and I find a removal spell I could kill an elf, then they would have 1 less mana, which means they would not be able to play Cavalier. They would be able to play a Karn. So it does not accomplish super much against parts of their possible range. If I play the Shredder, I'm probably not super lucky to beat... Well, in general, it seems like I'm not super lucky to beat stuff. So the plan should be to extend the game to the point where I can time or combo my opponent.
I think so
and
too.
The question is, does Shredder or Opt achieve that better?
I think that Opt is almost just a band-aid in this situation, and if you find removal in the top 2 or 3, you might be happy with it anyways. For example, I can imagine a sequence where the opponent casts Karn, there's no good cards to get, and then if you can find a removal spell on the next turn, then maybe you can Ledger Shredder the Karn and make it kind of a dead card. I
Mm-hmm.
think the removal spell might even be better next turn, actually.
That is true.
So
Yeah,
it's
if the,
possible,
true.
yeah.
So they can play a Karn or a Cavalier on the next turn, and they're guaranteed to play either one of those, right? So if they play Karn,
Right.
I would have much preferred to play Shredder over finding a removal spell because they can play the Karn anyways. And if they play the Cavalier, I still probably am fine with the Shredder. The situation in which
Well,
I
I just,
am
yeah.
happiest would be if they have only Cavalier, Storms, and Lands, and they 1, 2, 3, 4, and they would miss a play, but that seems hard to rely on.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me like if they play Cavalier, our plan is to play pieces probably next turn and hope that their hand doesn't like develop extremely quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Alternatively, like you can try to opt for something, but I don't think there's much to find if they hit a land off Cavalier because you can't slow them down particularly. I would say this is a position where we're looking to find some arc lights or some time walks in the next 10 to 12 turns, and you have to maybe maybe you can find spell pierce as well. It's kind of tricky. I think you clearly have to play Ledger Shredder though.
Mm-hmm. It's also a kind of the obvious play to like play or two drop over like a country with no guarantee of spending a second mana, but
Yeah, it's still interesting. I mean, killing the elf is almost like a band-aid, and it
mm-hmm.
hedges against the scenario where they don't have a land, right? But that's pretty unlikely. So.
Yes. If they play the like Cavalier, and I guess like I get to miss a land. They revealed Storm. Okay, 2 cards. They have 3 cards in hand right now. They play the land. You can assume that there is still at least one more payoff.
So they played Besage as their land, which tells you that they're unlikely to have another land in hand.
Yes. They're unlucky to have another lands in hand, even if it was a Nyctus. Actually, no, there is a chance they have a Nyctus in hand.
Really? Yeah, there is. Okay, you're
Because
right.
they could hit
Nyctus
a
is the one
Nyctus of
land they
the
can
of the
have.
Cavalier. And Spellpiece is an
Yep.
interesting draw here. Especially with Galvanic Iteration. Could pass with Spell Pierce, Opt, Connive. If I tap out 4 pieces. So they're likely to have another payoff. If that payoff is Cavalier, it will be tough. But more of their other payoffs are non-creatures. We don't have a good reason to believe that they have... what other payoffs do they have in their hand? Because I think
I mean,
them
it could
playing
be
a Cavalier
Storm or
here,
Karn, right?
or more Cavaliers, right? But I guess it's just less likely
Yeah,
because
but
there's
we can't hedge against that.
only
Yeah.
two left in the deck. So I think the play is going to
Well,
be
there's 2 Karns left and there's 3 Storms, so it's kind of similar.
yeah, true. Well, no, because Karns plus Storms is like more
Yeah,
cards
that's true.
than just the Cavaliers. And there's a chance they also actually don't have the extra land because they did play double Seju and they might not have Inictus.
Yeah.
And then there is a chance they'll play a card into Spell Pierce 2 without the need of copying or anything like
Yep.
that.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense to pass, especially because we're not even sure what we're looking for of pieces this turn. We're trying to set up like maybe a turn 5 time walk if possible. So it's kind of the same thing to cast pieces this turn versus next turn as well.
Yeah, it might be hard not to time out this much, but there's also an argument for opting in the upkeep for a removal spell on the elf. But I think if my point doesn't play into the Spell Pierce, I really want to go Iteration Opt if they play another
Yes, yeah,
Cavalier. So I think I'll choose not to.
that's a good point. You do kind of want to use all your mana. It's pretty important because you're going to be mana constrained and likely you're going to die with cards in hand. So I'm less worried about using my resources versus just making sure I spend all my mana possible.
We see a Sylvan Caryatid, so it's interesting. It's possible that they top decked the Sylvan Caryatid or like drew it the previous turn with the Cavalier turn.
Yeah. So let's see what else they have to play, but I would assume that their hand is two
Okay.
storms now. I think they have two storms in hand and one other card, which is probably I don't know what it is. Could be a Karn. It seems like
Yeah,
that's their hand to me, but I'm not sure.
they have
I
a
would say they're
Karn,
almost
then
certain to have two storms in hand, which is weird to say, but I would be pretty confident in that.
yeah, I mean it surely does feel like that because it's not Lance, it's not Cavalier. It I think it is not Karn because I would most likely play Karn over a Caryatid in this spot to get a Citadel and then play the Caryatid. Kind of tricky, not super convinced. So I think we'll be
Yeah,
going with the iteration Optorino for the maximum digging capacity. Could be a boat
they
as
can't
well.
even really. Yeah, they can't even really have another Beseiju in hand because they probably would have just Legend Ruled and cast Storm, which is what I was thinking.
Fiery Impulse. So killing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, it is relevant to kill. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you're going to keep this.
Hmm.
Going to. Yeah. So I think I definitely want to kill both elves because I have the opportunity. That could mean I want to ditch pieces. Although pieces gives me lots of digging power. I think Spell Pierce is pretty valuable. I probably should discard land. I think there is a good chance I'll draw another land, and I think pieces is pretty valuable.
Yeah, it looks like discard land to me. The only thing I was thinking of is if you wanted to try to size this Ledger above the Cavalier, but we might have to plan on finding Lightning Axe for that with Spikefield or something.
Mhm. Discard nothing, says chat. Well, that's the best. I think this goes to the bottom because a land is just much better.
Yeah.
You have a lightning axe, so you could kill
Okay.
the cavalier now. It's not. I don't think it is my preferred move right now, although it is a problem. But cutting them off the storm mana. I mean, we can afford a storm because you can spell pierce the first one. So given that the most likely actually giving them an opportunity to play storm into a spell pierce seems kinda okay.
Well, you could just take 5, play a tap land, and pass, and then like figure out what you want to do later.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, or you can kill the Cavalier now and not take 5. It's kind of a weird decision,
I
but
think taking 5 seems like pretty free for now.
yeah, it's probably fine.
Because spell pierce can be like a bit risky at later. You could draw Nyctas. If they have more turns to draw Nyctas, they are more likely to draw it. So like
Right.
if
That's
I
kind of the cost, right? If they draw
giving
Nykthos here, then the 3 mana from Cav might push them over the edge.
so giving
Well,
them the
let's
chance
see.
to okay, that's Karn. So they had a Karn and they chose not to play the Verkariated, or they maybe drew it later.
No, I think they had it. They were just playing on Spellpierce.
Seems like I think we're gonna let this happen because I don't see the upside of spell piercing that.
I don't either. It doesn't really do anything.
Yeah, it's actually kind of fine for me. That lets me maybe. My hand is kinda low, kinda small, but we can attack the card with Ledger Shredder. Cavalier is attacking me. Yeah, this is so hard.
It's really tricky. I think you have to take it though. You have to make a decision based on what Karn target they get, right? Like if they get Tormod's Crypt, then maybe make a different line. If they get Sky Sovereign, then we have to do something different as well.
Mm-hmm.
We're likely going to discard this Fiery Impulse, but like it really depends on the sequence. Like let's say they get like Darksteel Citadel here. Okay.
Citadel. Start playing.
Feels like feels like they're stream sniping, but I don't know. How do you get Darksteel Citadel on this turn? That's crazy to me, but I mean they have Storm and they're playing around Spell Pierce.
Well,
That's
they
the
did
only
play around
way
spell pierce,
you
so I
can make
guess it
that.
is pretty consistent in a way.
It is consistent. I agree. So we know they have Storm times two in hand, probably at least one.
We could keep the spell pierce live 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 mana. They top deck a land is not live. I could play 2 removals on the Mystics and then probably connive away the axe. Make the Shredder 2 power attack Karn down to 1 so it doesn't grab a card. Make spell players live and pieces.
Well, they don't have a land is the thing. I feel like you have to kill the Cavalier here because if you don't kill Cavalier, then you have
My plan against
no
Cavalier
real route to victory.
would be to return a Phoenix at some point and then block it.
I don't think you're gonna. I think you're gonna give them too much time to deploy all their storms because if they have a lot of time in this game, they're just gonna resolve a storm eventually. To me, it seems like a better sequence almost might be to this like to lightning axe plus spike field on the Cavalier and hope that they either don't draw a land or something else and discard this fiery impulse. And then if we draw a land, we can pieces try to find a removal spell for an elf and have spell pierce still in hand. You see what I'm saying with that sequence?
Kind
Like,
of. But then you have to discard a card to Lightning Axe. So you want to discard the Fire Impulse, and you really
yeah.
want to connive away a spell to guarantee that Shredder attacks Karn to down to 1 counter.
Well, the thing is, we have Galvanic Iteration plus Spell Pierce up, so we can just pass with 4 mana next turn and leave that up for Storm, even if they draw a land.
All right, I guess. No, I mean I see a reasoning. So I want to keep pieces to reload
Yeah, I want to
eventually.
keep pieces and Spell Pierce and then discard whatever we draw and hopefully we draw a spell. But
Hopefully we draw Phoenix.
now,
Iteration.
now we just got the Gal. Yeah, perfect. Okay.
Why is that perfect?
Well, my thinking is now you can cast pieces and then try to find a removal spell for one of the elves, and you do
Okay.
give them the chance that you brick on removal and they draw land. But I think that's lower odds than we get to spend our mana and develop, and then maybe have time walk next turn.
Yeah, it's like pretty unreasonable not to spend my mana, and between the pieces and them having a land, just kind of lots of stuff has to happen. Trespass, opt. So I have the iterations in my graveyard, would need a land 6. Could cruise, but cruise spends my graveyard.
I like opt and trespass, and then you can just cast the opt now and fill up your graveyard a little more and leave up spell pierce. Even if storm resolves, if they don't hit Cavalier, it's not that bad for you because you might be able to kill them. The
True.
downside is that they find Karn, then they can get Tormod's Crypt, but I don't think that's as much of a concern right now because they have 2 Karns in graveyard.
Yeah, they're pretty unlucky to hit under Karen. That would be my intuition too, to do so. Right,
Right.
so we're going to play the land. Probably shouldn't have played the land,
Let's.
but
Yeah. Okay.
can opt to connive.
Yeah.
I don't really need that because I need 6 mana for the trespass combo, so I think I'll bottom that.
Yeah. I don't think it does anything.
Yeah, now we have 2 spell
Gosh.
pierces, so you can spell pierce the storm real hard. We have 10 minutes. This against mono green, so like probably amongst the least less intense. But it seems pretty hard to like play games with this level of focus. Nicol Bolas, huh? Well,
Okay.
well, it is what it is, I guess.
Well, there was no playing around that, I think.
was not like on my mind within their
No,
possible range.
I guess that's the card they could have had for a while. Okay, how do we win? Let's see.
If we try
We
land,
can
and
double time walk and then draw pieces.
yeah, that's a good route. And pieces flips phoenixes. We draw a land, but now the card will get a turn script, so I can't not cast this, sort of.
Yeah, you have to cast it and just tap 5 mana. Really bad. Oh well. I think our plan was pretty close. Not quite, but pretty close. Yeah. Wow. We worked out hard.
Maybe a bit preemptive, but also like with the assumption of the clock and. No, I mean I didn't need to scope, but I probably would
Don't
have lost.
think you have any outs. Yeah.
Mm,
How do you like sideboarding versus them?
so normally what I do is along those lines. Something around those lines. I think the most important thing for me is to stick a monster on turn 2. And, well, I want my counter magic to mess with my opponent while I interact with their early plays and then their late game plays while I work towards the time walk combo. Like
Yeah.
the
One
most
thing,
turn 2 monsters I can. I think Young Pyro is not excellent, but it's like good enough as a 2-drop. It's just such a huge delta between playing a monster on turn 2 or not.
yeah. One thing I noticed that I am kind of skeptical of is we have 0 discard outlets and 4 Phoenixes in our deck, so it's pretty hard to like ever cast Phoenix in this matchup, and you might run into situations where you basically just like have Phoenixes stranded from like the get go and can only get them with pieces or ledger shredders.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
There is some
I
like
generally,
assumption built
yeah,
into that your shredders are going to survive, which they mostly do against mono green. But I guess yeah, I've seen that you have the
yeah.
strategy of like boarding down on Phoenix sometimes, so we could like make our deck
I
make more
usually,
sense by
I
doing
usually cut,
this.
yeah, yeah, like one Phoenix. I will say I don't have much experience playing Young Pyro in this matchup, but let's see how it goes. And then I'm not sure about the third cruise is kind of hard to evaluate, but everything else looks good. I mean, it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
I understand that the logic though, like you don't want to have as many delve spells, right? Because you just want to have your delve spell be temporal trespass.
yeah, kind of like just can't commit the graveyard cards to the cruise, and they sometimes get the crypt, so you kind of can get caught with many in your hand.
Yeah.
uh, Daniel Gerchel in the chat. What do you mean? You said young pirates, but in this matchup, stop being coward, Nathan.
Um, I may have said that once or twice, but I'm interested in seeing how it performs, so
The
we'll try it.
Sands, I don't love it. Doesn't have a 2-drop, but it has both of the interactions for the elf and the non-elf rams. I think I'll keep it and I'll play a blue one on turn 1. Blue one invites them
Yeah,
to
I
play
think
an elf.
you play a blue one. Yeah, definitely a blue one seems good. If you play red, then it's face up, which is fine, but also you're probably more incentivized to want to consider and find a 2-drop than anything, right?
Yeah. That's pretty obvious. I didn't play an elf, and you have a thing in the ice, which it's not going to go to my graveyard. In fact, it's going to go to my hand, and I'll just I can play Otawara. Do not
Yeah.
commit the pathway yet. Probably not using
Otherwise seems
Otawara this
good.
game.
Yeah, I mean you always want 2 blue for next turn with your hand, so it seems nice to do that now.
Yeah.
This is also a hand where Treasure Cruise will be strong because you're a lot less reliant on uh, Temporal Trespass when you have Thing.
Some people do that, and that's kind of scary. Just bring the main deck hers.
So our
But
opponent played Nykthos, which is just kind of interesting, but
yeah,
don't want to
that's
time out, so don't talk about it a ton. But it does imply that their hand is a little weird and they don't have Troll, right? Or
yes.
can't cast it. One of the two.
My hand is also a little bit weird, and the tension between Thing in the Ice and Ledger Shredder is significant here, but Cruise is a little bit of a free discard. If they play a Kiora, I can just attack her with the Shredder. Well, not down, but kinda.
Yeah, you're not really threatened by anything. It seems nice to play the Shredder in the opt and just get going, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'd imagine our plan is just to flip this thing and hit them 3 times. Hopefully that's good enough.
I guess I'm more likely to cast this than this
Yeah.
through the hairs.
You also might be able to, yeah, like outrace. Oh, this seems nice.
Seems
Like you
good.
might be able to outrace the hearse in terms of graveyard cards.
Yeah, yeah. You might stream snipe and play Nycta, so we'll talk about that for 2 minutes, says chat. Which would be they play Boseju now, so they're probably just ripping the lens of the top.
Yeah, good call.
What do you think of that strategy suggested in the chat? And they play the Nyctas, so
What?
say that they play the Nyctas to make us spend 2 minutes talking about the Nyctas.
Oh, that's smart. Yeah, I think it's a good strategy.
I think I'll play a land because Cruise is a relatively free discard still, because I don't see this outpacing coming that easily. I can attack for 2. This is 7, 14, 2, 16. I think it makes sense to attack face. And skill
You want
Secura
to
2 at 1.
consider first? You want to just start with consider and see, or are you trying to like play around hearse? Is that what you're thinking?
No, I'll cast a consider.
Because you might end up casting pieces this turn if you find it as
Yeah,
well. It's a
yeah.
pretty clean pieces turn.
This is super awkward. I was thinking that the thing in the ice to cut it entirely, and that's one of the reasons, because this sometimes kind of happens. And replace it with a main deck
Yeah.
Young Pyromancer. This would be a Pyromancer, and that would have worked, I think, much better this game. Because I could keep another
Not
threat.
necessarily. I mean, you might get cavaliered and then it's a problem, but yeah, I see what you're saying.
True. But at this point, I
Okay.
kind of don't want another monster. I put it back, and we see another monster. Great.
It sounds weird, but you might have to just fire impulse your own thing here and get the trigger and do stuff. I'm not sure, but
1 to 3.
pretty close.
That seems pretty weak to me.
Yeah.
I
You
mean,
don't
I
have to.
could
I mean,
fire impulse spell piece kill Kiora with the thing. They don't
ooh.
have the troll mana. That seems a little bit extreme, but possible.
No, that might be right. I mean, you might not be getting better spots as this game goes on. I don't think they have a land. I think I might go for that. We can get the trigger first with Ledger Shredder, so you can start up a fairy impulsing thing.
Well,
Okay.
that's better.
Yeah.
I probably should discard Cruiser, not Shadow.
Yeah. It's okay though.
I think I like have a tendency to discard second Shredder like super. I don't like that bug. I think I have a tendency
Yeah.
to discard the second Shredder super often. Probably too often. Like, I don't know, it just kind of feels like if I have one, I don't need the second one, or I don't want to commit the card the second one to make my hand smaller, but it's just probably not a solid reasoning. Because like you have treasure cruise in the deck, so you just fill your graveyard more quickly than you cast a cruise, and then that just works.
Another Kiora, pretty easy target. Yeah, I mean, I guess I was thinking, yeah, second Shredder, you can just double Shredder this turn and not have to worry about stuff, but at the same time, it's not so bad. I guess we don't have great alternatives. Yeah, double Shredder would have been good. Oh, well, that was the best. Okay. Maybe we'll have time for game 3 now. I haven't really been that scared of Hearst out of green. I was saying, like, sort of my issue with Hearst just fundamentally is I just don't think it. Wait, does this do anything? No,
It
I
kind of
think you
doesn't. We
ignore
don't
it.
stroke that, right? We stroke the next play.
Yeah. Part of the issue with Hearst out of every deck except for like red black is that it's not
Oh
particularly
shit!
like oh god.
Wait, it's not seven,
Wait, it's fine, right? You can just
eight.
race it because you hit them for 8. It's close.
It's close.
Oh well. Wait, do you want to just pass like attack and is that the math? Let's see, 7 8. They go to 5. Then you Galv consider put a counter on Shredder. You have yeah. You should be good to pass like attack them both and pass. Yeah.
He's a phenomenal control player.
Take all my dollars.
Weird. I did not think about the wand getting us.
Hairs plus wand. I guess if you cut phoenixes anyways, then that's a way to
Yeah.
combat the hairs too, to ignore it more
I mean,
easily.
Hearst was good here, but also just not really what the games are about in my experience. Yeah, like the games are a lot more threat centered and like
True,
it
it
doesn't
does
do that well against the
seem
2 mana threats.
like they're losing.
Might want to respond to that because you have Spell Pierce. You'd probably Spell Pierce it, right?
Yeah, I have spell pierces, that's true. I'm also giving up a little bit to the clock pressure. And also,
Yeah, I mean,
like I'm assuming that
we can just
we're gonna
cast your
time
spells.
out,
Yeah.
and it's gonna be fine. But
I think we can clutch it time wise. I mean, you're gonna win this game with 3 minutes left, and then
you're
plenty
gonna
of time
speedrun.
for game 3. Yeah.
How do you tackle like the clocks, the rope? What the hell?
What? You should. I don't know what this means, but yeah, I guess Galv consider.
I think we got consider, but this is some kind of a tricky play. Because I guess it means my opponent has a ground blocker, and they want to play like the thing on the ground.
Oh,
So
wait, keep it.
this is good.
Yeah, I can discard Cruise. I guess keep it. Yeah. Okay. Probably don't even have to cast off. There's no cards, right?
Heart of Kiran.
Okay. Perfect.
But
So we win.
is a gamer. So yeah, I was about to ask, how do you deal with like the pressure of the clock and playing fast? And like, do you struggle? Do you find it troublesome, or do you like feel like you have enough time to perform your decisions on, I guess, arena more so with the rope?
Yeah, Arena's a lot harder for me. I mean, on Magic Online, I try to like just make the best decision when it comes to uh like if I spend like 10 minutes in the first game or whatever, then I know in the second game, like in closer spots, I'll have less time. So obviously there's trade-offs, but I feel comfortable playing with like 3 minutes on the clock for game 3, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's probably just an experience thing with other decks, like maybe other than Phoenix would be harder. I'm not sure. I mean, clock pressure definitely takes its toll. but once you lose a few games to it, I think you generally learn to that you need to this like when you need to speed up.
Point
What do you think?
boards hairs into the main deck. Could have a braid. Could have Crackling Drake for fastness or the 4 Phoenix for fastness. To like make a concession to 3 minutes. Like should be doable if I play fast without doing.
I will say Pyromancer is not the best card for time intensive games, but I
True.
mean
True, it does trigger a lot.
maybe just coping with the fact I don't like it. Yeah, I think Crackling Drake or Phoenix are both reasonable. Otherwise, yeah, this configuration is fine.
Well, we can do this as a time concession. Then you can talk a little bit more about the pyro after the game is finished.
Yeah. I don't think bringing in a braid makes any sense in general, just because like they have to board in one of their 2 artifact cards. Uh, one of their few good ones, right? Like, why would you want to board in the Tormod's Crypt or the Hearse really if you're gonna get those cards the most? It doesn't make sense to me.
Do you keep this?
Yeah, it sounds good. I would keep this, and then I would probably lead on island and consider and try to find a land. I think. Let's
In-
see.
Interesting. I think
Maybe not.
like
Maybe not
because
because you want to trigger the shredder. Yeah.
yeah, you
Okay.
want to connive. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll
Okay.
lead on
Yeah.
those
Tap
two.
land for sure.
So you can pass
So they
for.
don't have elf in hand.
Do you think they
Okay.
play 1 or do you think they play like 7?
Just all the hearses
It's interesting.
maxed out, maybe.
I mean, I did play League with mono green with 3 Herses, but I didn't play against Phoenix and like that didn't happen. Um, but as you say, it's not even always like the perfect cards for the matchup.
Yeah. You just have
Oh,
to
I have
attack
3
them, and
minutes,
you probably have to just attack and pass.
but I'll attack them because if I have to kill Kiora with 2 minutes, half and half,
No,
then
I would ignore that. Yeah.
too much HP. Yeah, play a troll.
That's not that bad for us. Like, I mean, I guess they have Nykthos, so
It's
it
bad for
gets worse,
devotion,
but
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, wow, that's a lot of mana. But I mean, we get our considered turn in. Can loot away an impulse.
Do you do a lot of coaching or like how often does that happen to you?
I probably do a few hours a day,
A
like
few
two
hours a day,
hours a day, maybe.
that's pretty solid amount.
Yeah. I mean, I think during the last month it was a lot less frequent, but I try to do about that.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely like coaching, but yeah, I can cut into like prep time, like for big tournaments, and uh, if I didn't enjoy it, I wouldn't do it as often for sure.
How often do you manage to uh, finish the Magic Online games with your coaching
Well, if
students?
we do an hour, we usually I'll just stay or whatever, depending on how long it's taking. But like usually get through a match and a replay if we have time and discussion, and can sometimes do more.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I like doing replay reviews where you can get like 2 or 3 in an hour and talk
Mm,
about the decision.
yeah,
That's where it's the most
replay
helpful for
reviews
me.
are better for that. That's a good point.
Yeah, not gonna have
Can
time for
use
that.
Nyctus. Probably gonna play something better.
We're probably gonna storm now. I wish we had. Yeah. Oh no.
I could have killed the elf in response to cure on tap, or at least chat thinks so, which probably means it was true.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking. I mean, we were under time pressure. I think in a normal game would have been able to untap.
Chat is also surprised that you like the Crackling Drake in the matchup, but the truth is, you don't. Right?
No, it's not great.
Yeah, I don't think it's great either.
Usually I want to play the Drake here, but they're gonna go for Wand. It's gonna be bad, but what are you gonna do? Probably have to. Yeah. I mean, with time pressures and stuff.
So
Well, can be this card. I think the new upgrade, which you're probably considering, is the one that deals 4 to a planeswalker or creature in exiles. Like the upgraded lava coil seems really good to me.
I think so. That is a good troll answer, yeah. They're like they're kind of lacking in that aspect in the list right now.
Yeah, I
'Cause,
was main decking lava coil at some point before for that, and it's so much worse than this new card.
it is pretty annoying in general. I am waiting for them to finally fix Fiery Impulse, at least so that it hits Planeswalkers. Like, the good thing they did
Fix
that to Lava
Fiery
Coil,
Impulse.
but Fiery Impulse that hits Planeswalkers should also be a thing. I think it's a little bit tilting at times.
Yeah, that would be very good. It's funny how good the hearse was this game, the way it played out. I think we would have had a much stronger setup if we could just ignore it.
True, I had the Phoenixes and I didn't discard them because I couldn't.
Hard to say if we would have won this game otherwise. I mean, we're just taking lethal to Chain Veil, but might have been. Yeah.
I feel like I'm not really sure about the keep, because like you said, you sound pretty confident about this hand. You said you want to keep it because it looks good to
Yeah.
you, but it is rough. Like to me, like the two super important things in the opening hands in the matchup is the turn 1 interaction and then the turn 2 monster. And I ideally would want both, of course. Like, you can't quite hard mulligan for that always because you're just not always gonna get it, but as close to that as possible. And I guess on the play, the 2-drop is more like gains more value, and on the draw, the interaction spell gains more relative value. Although, like, this game, they didn't even play an elf on one, so I would have like kept a Fire Impulse, mulligan to Fire Impulse, so you play no elf, and I'm like, oh yeah, cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's true that it's probably pretty important to have the Fiery Impulse, but a lot of the green range, yeah. I mean, we'll have Elf turn 1, so it's kind of awkward. Maybe you're supposed to mulligan the hand. I'm not sure. I thought it was pretty close, but I was just thinking, like, time consideration wise, maybe worth keeping. Hand seemed okay. Remind me. Oh, okay. So we had to consider or not consider.
We had consider, Island, Stormcarved Coast, Ledger Shredder, Stroke, 1, 2, 3,
Yes.
4, 5, 6, and was it Pieces? Was it something else?
I don't think we had pieces.
Drake?
Could be wrong. Yes, it was Drake.
Yeah, it was Drake. So we kept that, and I played the Stormcarved Coast on turn 1 to play the Shredder with double consider on turn 2, on Shredder on turn 2 to be able to do double consider on turn 3, and then I wanted, so we were able to hold up strokes and consider, so we didn't draw land number 3 on 3 just naturally, which I guess maybe you are
That play was
supposed to,
hard. Maybe you're supposed to consider because they're just too far behind. Yeah.
maybe you just want to consider on turn 1 to maximize your odds for hitting the land number 3 on turn 3.
Well, it's fine doing it on turn 3 too. If that's your line, wouldn't it make more sense to just consider on turn 3 even if you don't draw your third land, because then you get an extra draw step in between?
Mm-hmm.
So I think maybe that should have been our line. Just consider on turn 3 with Shredder in play and give up the connive and try to hit our land drop and then hold up stroke. What was their punish on the next turn when we had stroke up? They went troll. Yeah, troll was really bad.
They had Kiora into troll, so they even drew a card.
Yeah, something I've been thinking about is like green has a lot of draws, which if they draw like the right quarter of their deck, line up extremely well against Phoenix. Like Phoenix just can't have the answer to like every single angle from green. Um, but on average, I feel like yeah, there's a lot of spots where you're hoping for them to not have Troll or Cavalier. Then and Kiora, those three cards can be really awkward at different stages. Otherwise, like not always so bad. Yeah.
I think the like toughest, I guess, like situation is when they play the troll when you're holding up stroke. Just like the fact that the stroke is the perfect counter for the matchup, except for the troll, and Kiora can also boost the troll to actually be like super threatening with the card draw. That's a bit tough
Yeah,
because
that can be so awkward.
if not for the troll, then you could just have a bunch of strokes. Maybe I shouldn't play any like Ethergas because that's kind of the part of the reason why I want to play Ethergasts or Gast.
Yeah.
Is to have some answers or plays versus the troll. So like if you find space for the lava coil, plus you can maybe try to not play gas and have coil as your troll answer. Because the issue of trolls is also like that it's a sticky devotion, and then I think like that's the toughest.
Well, one interaction which I try to make work is like Galvanic plus Gust can also be really good, which is like part of the reason I like Gust, but it also can be really awkward for the reason you described. Like optimally, I would have like 2 to 3 stroke, 1 to 2 Aether Gust, and like 2 Lava Coil, like the upgraded Lava Coil, and then like 2 to 3 Spell Pierce, and 5 to 7 2 drops would be the optimal way of doing it. Something like that would be the max amount of cards you can play for green, I think.
So we're saying that you don't like Young Pyromancer. I think it's actively bad. Or rather, you were not saying that, but you were, I guess, outed by Twitch chatters. That is your true opinion, true allegiance.
Yeah, well, I think I could describe that as like my issue with Pyromancer is most of the games I lose to green don't involve the ground being freed. So I just feel like you can't win by like getting through on the ground. If anything, it would just be like if you thought that the most important thing was having a lot of chump blockers. But even then, I feel like when I lose to green, it's by like a wide margin, like what just happened, where they like get through like your interaction, and there's nothing like that really matters once they get to this point, including like creatures on the ground. Um, so young Pyromancer has like a lot of diminishing returns for me, just past turn 2 because I don't think it stops their game plan. If anything, I just see it as like a way of maybe like lava axing them on turn 2 plus.
Yeah, that's
And that's not really yeah.
kind of what it does. And also lava axes the like planeswalkers, sort of. Although it rarely lava axes Kiora enough that it actually kills him. It lets you finish out the Karn like relatively often, let's say. So that's an upside, but it's often already problematic if Karn has resolved and grabbed the Tormod script. So what?
Yeah, I mean that could be an issue.
Yeah, what do you think is like the optimal amount of 2-drops you'd want? I guess is that something that you think about, or is like do you not even think in this way?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think 6 to 7, but if I wanted another 2-drop, then I would I would try a few other alternatives like Thing, maybe try Ball more, maybe try
Which
other
card?
things that can solve that issue. Ball more.
Balmor. Interesting.
I was just like throwing out ideas of like, flying threats that kind of accomplish a similar goal. I haven't tried that one out yet. But I was just saying like part of my issue is I want my cards to be evasive and threatening to the green deck, and I don't think Pyromancer accomplishes that well. Thing in the Ice obviously has its own like method of evasion that's effective. So yeah, I would try to find a slot for like one additional 2-drop threat if you wanted. I don't think you need much more than 6. It's just tricky. Like I agree with your initial analysis that you really want a 2-drop every game versus green. If you could guarantee that, you'd be really happy.
Yeah, like I do agree that Thing in the Ice seems better than. Well, it doesn't seem. It is better than Young Pyromancer in the matchup, and like I also operate under that assumption. The reason why I bring the Young Pyromancer is because I value the ability to play a monster on turn 2 high enough that I'm willing even to bring this somewhat subpar monster. And I'm also happy to play like a second creature on turn 3 with an interaction if the time allows. If you can do that, that's also just like that means you pressure them. That adds up. Although it is also a question I get really often from the Twitch chatters. There is probably something to it. Very often a surprise. You bring Pyro versus Green? 3 question marks.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Pyromancer like scales at all is the other issue. Like I agree, like maybe if you can guarantee it as a threat on turn 2, it would be better than like some of the alternative slots. But my issue is like past turn 2, like maybe turn 3 in some games. I just feel like it's as close to like a dead Delve spell as you can get. So that's part of my issue. I would rather play like another charter course over it if I were to build my deck that way, because I think it might actually enable more pressure if you keep a lot of Arclights in your deck.
Interesting. Because I was boarding out the chart, so I guess that makes sense. You would just keep the chart as a way to increase, to have more pressure. Which it kind of is pressure, yeah, in a way, true.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with your overarching game plan that you're just like playing towards Time Walk as your way of winning eventually. And what I like doing is trying to set up board states where you can play that 1-for-1 game with green, or like they don't have very good recourse versus like Shredder. That's how you get free wins, right? Like it's like Shredder or another threat turn 2, and then Time Walk later, like as you trade off resources. So I'm not I'm not thrilled about Pyro, but I would definitely play them in the deck. Like, not sure if they're the best 2-drop, but I would definitely have them somewhere because the card is good.
Yeah, like that's the reason. Like I have them because I think they're generally good and to have against other matchups, and I have found them to be generally valuable. And then also wanted the 2-drops versus green, which led me to bringing the Pyromancers into against green.
Do you like playing against green, playing Phoenix? How do you feel about it?
I do. I think I'm ahead. Yesterday? No, not yesterday.
Does it feel?
Like, I don't know, like a few percent TBH, so like not super. But a tiny bit, but I feel ahead. Anecdotally, I played the Sunday Challenge. I won it. Played versus 5 greens. Won versus all. Got lucky a bunch, but it's just kind of my experience with green is a bit maybe different than what you're saying, or because you're saying that you feel it's a significantly meaningfully the best deck in Pioneer, right? You said that. Do I
on raw power level?
On raw power level, yeah.
Maybe not deck selection wise, but yeah, I do think that on power level.
But I have a theory, which I'm not entirely sure if it's a cope theory or like an actual theory, but let me present it to you. Like mono green is, I think it is fair to say that it is a deck with a high skill floor. So like if you just play your cards, it's like played at a high percentage of its overall maximum capacity, right? Yeah. And like a deck like this is obviously going to appear from like observing the format. It's going to appear much better than the other decks, right? That have lower skill floors if it's played by by a mass of average players, right?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Which leads me to my conclusion that I don't want to play mono green for Sofia, because I legitimately think that because of that, it is not going to be the best I can do. Like, I could learn a different deck and get greater returns from that than to play mono green.
It doesn't sound like any of your points are dismissing the claim that it's the best deck on raw power level to me. Like I do agree with all the points you made, but I still think that the argument of like having the highest power level in a vacuum is just for me there to like say um, like card for card, I feel like the deck's strength is a little higher than most of the other decks, and I think Phoenix is probably like the second best in that regard. Maybe you could argue Phoenix is the best, but I think you choosing Phoenix as the deck you want to play probably speaks to that as well. I don't know if you feel that way.
Yeah, it does. I do. Yes, I think we agree. Like, I guess just like the overall power level in a vacuum is maybe a bit of a nebulous term
Yeah.
in that case. But like
I wouldn't use it as a justification for choosing green myself, though, necessarily. Like, I think it's just an argument for why I think green is a deck that you have to have like a strong plan against if you're going to play any deck,
all right,
and
so yeah,
also
I
why.
agree with that.
Yeah.
What I would like to dispel or dismiss would be the assumption that like you're making a mistake by not playing mono green, which is a rhetoric that you can hear from in some places on the internet sometimes, which I think is not the case.
I agree. I don't really like that rhetoric as well. I find it kind of funny because it's like kind of ridiculous. I mean, there are some formats where that's the case. Like, I don't know if you played Team or Rec, maybe you played something else, but that was like the thing that came to mind immediately.
Yeah, I
Um,
played a bit of Timurek. Although I have a long history of playing the worst possible deck in like standard tournaments possible. But sure, continue.
Yeah, but I just mean like there are definitely plenty of formats where that is a fair claim to make, and I don't think this Pioneer format is one of them.
Yes, I agree with that. I also think it is the case. It's like easy to kind of extrapolate and think that it is true in every format ever, but I don't think it is true in every format ever. Like, I think the decks in Pioneer are kind of like they're not that ahead of each other.
Would you think similar claim about something like playing the old four color variants, like a format and a half, whatever it was, like after Shadow, when four color was, in my opinion, like clearly the best deck in Modern, or do you think things were still close enough where it's justifiable to play something else?
At which point again?
When four color control in Modern, like with the Orion, was very good, I would say post Luris ban.
Mm-hmm.
Do
Well,
you think that was a case where, yeah, you kind of needed to play four color, or do you think things were also close? Like, would you say that was a closer decision in terms of deck strength, or less close than this Pioneer format right now?
I think it was. I don't think Forkwa was like. I wrote an entire article about that
Yeah.
on haruruya.com. But I had a feud, I guess, with Yorion at some point, and I just stopped playing the deck, and kind of like over the top, of course, but I really thought the hype surrounding it was overstated, and it was also a pretty weird feeling because a pretty like hard to understand situation, because it really did seem like the Atlantic Ocean was what divided Yorion from being a like fine deck to being a great deck. For some reason in the US it was like winning all these RCQs don't stop, while just seemed not really on the same power level here in Europe. So it's kind of a weird thing. I don't fully understand that to this day, and I don't think I ever will.
That is a pretty interesting phenomenon. I don't think I really noticed that, but I'm sure there are other cases where like there's a divide between the US centric idea of what the metagame should look like or what the best are. Probably, I don't know if it's due to louder players in my circle where I hear it more, but if you're also hearing that more, then it must not just be that.
Yeah, I mean, did you think that Yorion was like the best thing ever in Modern?
No, I mean, I thought the deck was pretty good, but uh, if I remember correctly, I thought it was like one of the top 3 decks and like all kind of close. Um, whereas like maybe some other people thought if you weren't playing this deck before something like Yorion got banned, that you were like throwing away equity, which is like a sentiment commonly heard when like you just have a strategy that doesn't have any clear egregious matchups, right?
Mhm.
Like it's a lot easier to say that about a deck like Yorion, which like out of the most commonly played decks, you wouldn't be like, okay, if I play against this deck, I'm like 0%. So I think it's harder to make those claims with a deck like mono green because the weaknesses are a lot more apparent, at least to me, where I think if you wanted to build like a deck to attack mono green, it wouldn't be that difficult to like beat mono green, but like lose to a lot of other decks potentially.
Well, there's tons of exploits of mono green. Some like more successful, some less successful, but there's like feels like every week a new deck pops up with, and the argument for playing it is like, oh yeah, it has a good mono green matchup. This like version
Yeah.
of aggro deck XYZ.
Yeah, it's hard to know what to believe in that regard.
There's one thing. But yeah, like remember the mocks that X Whale, William Kruger won. Like again, like there was like pretty easy, pretty very successful, pretty easy exploit. Well, maybe not easy to find, but it was a fairly successful exploit of the 4-color decks, and then he just won the mocks thanks to his, in large part thanks to his genius metagame call, right?
Yeah.
I think
I
like
mean,
the claim that is a mistake to not play a deck is substantial in the metagames like the Timur Rec one, like you mentioned, where that deck actually had trouble losing to anything really, or like arguably like Delver and Legacy at certain points.
yeah. I mean, I'd like to talk about that example you brought up with the mocks for a minute because I thought that was an interesting tournament where I helped some of the other competitors test a bit for the event, who ended up playing the Traverse 4-color deck. It was Zachary Dunn and Andre Klepatch, and I felt like uh, I was working like a bit since I wasn't testing for the tournament as much. Like I was trying to theoretically come up with common ways of exploiting 4-color, and felt like it was more difficult in that regard. And then when I saw that that team brought red green Titan Shift, um, it was the type of idea where like it makes a lot of sense to have this be a way of exploiting 4-color in a closed field. But if you're playing in an open field like Modern, I think you just can't make that deck decision. So I would say, I mean, you could argue that, but I would say it wouldn't be very reasonable to play that in Modern at any point in the last year, like in an open metagame. And
Yeah.
so that just might be a case where I think it kind of shows how it's kind of harder to exploit Yorion. Like if there are other decks going on, like similar to the idea of like people would argue Monogrin's hard to exploit because all the decks that beat it are bad against like the other commonly played things, and that's like a hallmark of a good strategy. I don't know if I believe that. I just think that's what arguments I've heard have insinuated.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I don't know.
So
I find it interesting. What do you think? Does that make sense to you, or do you disagree with like that premise of you can't play certain strategies because they're too weak into an open field?
no, yeah, I agree. Well, you can. I would agree with the premise
Or
that
you
that you shouldn't, but
Yes,
obviously
you
can
can do anything.
and there's no stopping of like if someone actually wants to do so, because of course, as much as Magic is a competitive game, like various tournaments happen of various sizes, and people just have various motivations or reasons to play in them. So you should play Valakut if like the goal is to release the most happy brain chemicals, and triggering Valakut triggers also your happy brain chemicals, right? So, but of course, like assuming
That is true.
that trying to win, of course, I agree that you probably shouldn't play this deck. But also,
Yeah.
I would say that to me there is like I think as far as like the best decks and formats go, the like Hogak probably, or like the Cascade
Yeah.
Valky deck. That's like the tier of
That
of the
deck
deck where you
is
like probably
really
shouldn't
good. Yeah.
play a different deck. And then below this tier
Does
there's going
KCI
to
join
be
that tier?
uh,
Is it
mm,
approaching or no?
it's hard to say. Memories are fuzzy at this point. Kind
Yeah.
of, but probably no, I think like KCI is more in a like Timur reclamation tier of like the best deck where like you shouldn't play. I think that's like a lower tier, but still noticeable difference between like how much it is ahead of everything else. And then like mono green would be a tier below that, or even 2 tiers below that, I think.
Agreed. Yeah, I think that's a good way of thinking about it. Like, where are these historical like best decks in relation to what people are saying now is something you have to play, and I think those decks are just much higher. And we also have the ability of, um, I'm struggling to find the word, like not reflection, but we have the yeah, we can just see how these things already played out and know that this is the case. Maybe we'll look back at this format and be like, wow, clearly like Phoenix was the best way of attacking this, or clearly mono green was by far the best, but I think it's still unlikely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm also happy to play another match if you still had time and wanted to do that. I would be willing to, but I don't know how you're feeling.
Yes, we can play. We can play the one last match. I'll just take a quick bathroom break, so I'll come back in a few minutes.
Cool.
Right, we back.
Awesome.
Also had a thought about the cutting Phoenix's strategy. Frequently when I play decks, like I start playing a deck, I play many games with it, I encounter the same matchup a lot, and then after a few matches, I find a sideboard strategy that I like, and I end up just not changing it for a long time because it seems like it's something that works for me. And that oftentimes leads to me having not really considering cutting certain cards in matchups ever, and kind of Phoenix is an example of that. I guess if you wouldn't tell me, I wouldn't think of the strategy of cutting Phoenix postboard like myself probably ever. Like if you leave me on like a stranded island on a stranded on an island with just like Magic Online and having to figure the Phoenix deck out by myself for let's say 10 years, I would like, I don't know if cutting Phoenixes would cross my mind.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I mean, it's also not really the type of thing that I intuitively would jump to be honest. I tried it out because a few months ago, one of my teammates, Tristan Wildlaroo, suggested it, and I think we could bottom this because of the trespass. Sorry to
I
stop
think
mid
about the
sentence,
same.
but yeah, I felt like when my teammate Tristan suggested it that it might be something to consider, even though it sounded weird because I was getting lower on Lightning Axe. I thought Lightning Axe was really bad, and I also felt like one of my issues I ran into was I would often have Phoenixes stranded in hand, or I'd return a Phoenix and it wouldn't be that effective because uh, I wouldn't need as many Phoenixes until like the critical point where like I'm trying to kill my opponent with time walks. So it's hard for me to balance how many I want, but I knew that like drawing too many would be an easy way of losing, and I ended up cutting down to like 2 to 3, mostly 3 though. Just because of slots. Like I think the slots are tight and the interaction is where you want to be in the 2 drops, and I didn't feel like Phoenix was ideal into that plane basically.
That does make sense. Like it is what it frees. Here I played the Shredder on 2 because it's hard to kill early without the fiery impulse being turned on, and then I played Charter Course post combat because I assumed I will get a connive from the Shredder throughout this game. Opponent chooses no
Yeah, I
cards,
mean,
nice pieces.
this was an awkward sequence for us for sure. I don't think there was much you could have done to avoid it. Oh, this is cool.
Do you hardcast here?
Yeah, I don't see any other lines, and I think your opponent doesn't have great counterplay to hard casting it.
They're just missing
Like,
pieces
what are they
today.
gonna do? Yeah. They're gonna probably cruise this turn, and then they have to do something like put Phoenix into play, and then our line is gonna involve using our Fiery Impulse and trying to find one of our own pieces or card draw spells is how I envision the sequence playing out. When I'm thinking about what the opponent is doing, I also recognize that they could still have Fiery Impulse because they didn't have 2 spells and they never had a chance to kill Shredder. So what I
Yes.
wish could have happened is we could have found a way to buff the Shredder, but unfortunately it didn't look like that was an option.
Seems like they didn't have it.
Oh really? I think they could still have it, right? Oh, I guess maybe they wouldn't do this if they had it. Yeah, they probably wouldn't.
I think they wouldn't do this. They exile iteration, they give me the connive to so like
Well, they could have lightning axe, right? That's the other reason they can make this sequence, or they have nothing. Yeah.
well, so I think the likelihood of them having fire impulse decreased, but also increased greatly because they drew 6 cards. So
Yeah. They also can't have lightning axe anymore, right? They wouldn't consider if they had it. They played the pathway on blue.
true.
think if you're the opponent, you should mostly be attacking here. It sounds weird, but it's pretty unlikely the Phoenix survives on defense if you discard Fiery Impulse. The damage also could matter if you have like a time lock turn.
I agree, I think. I have played the mirror a bit so far. Some of my opponents were employing a strategy of sideboarding into haymakers. I've seen Jace,
Ooh.
Wielder of Mysteries, Crackling Drake, Kefnet, God Eternal being played by my opponents. Those cards haven't felt particularly great to me, I have to admit.
Yeah, I don't think that. I think keeping your deck lean, Counterspell and Time Walk and Pyro Focus is how you want to build a post board.
I think I will just go for the damage, play the second Phoenix, get the Connive and try to sneak the last few damages with the Time Walk.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that we get 5 cards here is ideal, right? Because then we just need to. I mean, they're probably going to kill one of our things. We're pretty likely to get to cast Time Walk next turn because they're going to have to trigger the Shredder again, likely.
Mm-hmm. So they probably don't have Axe, as we have figured out, so I can expect the Shredder to survive decently often, because they might find a Axe, but they would likely need to like cast a spell, and then we would get a Connive. So could be a 4/6 if we mill over on their spell. Just thinking if there is like any argument to keeping the pieces over the trespass, but probably not with the situation here. With they taking 6, 7, 8, 9, they go to 4 damage. No, definitely taking the trespass, keeping the trespass.
Yeah, I mean, there's some consideration, but I think you're so likely to be able to Time Walk and resolve it next turn, and that effect must be better than piecing right now. The math is awkward. I mean, 4 versus 3, but we also don't have that many bad draws. Like our worst draw is like Lightning Axe, which would be like maybe okay if they have to leave something on defense, or I guess their death spell, like a Temporal Trespass or Treasure Cruise would be good.
Mm-hmm. 2 blue mana.
So they basically need to cast 3 spells, it seems like. If they just pass, I don't know what that means yet.
I have played against a player with a main deck Disdainful Stroke the other day, although that does not help much in this situation. Alone would need a impulse to.
I guess we are just guaranteed to cast Time Walk. Like we'll have enough resources for sure. So they have to kill one of our things.
Would you say that magic is your main occupation right now, or do you do something else? Do you study or?
No, so I actually took a leave from school, from classes, from university to pursue Magic further in the past 6 months. I actually only stopped classes at the start of this year, which is where I've had the most success in Magic. So I'd like to think there was a strong correlation between that happening.
It's a little bit awkward for you, probably, with the MPL being retired and, well, maybe the professional gaming area being a little bit tougher. Rather, well, maybe non-existent. No, well, not non-existent. We'll see what the Protoss will bring. If I attack with everyone, they kill one of my guys. They eat.
Yeah, you have
Jambug.
guaranteed lethal, I think. because they can kill a guy, then you time walk, and they have to
1,
jump
2,
block
3,
and then
4,
you have
5,
lethal.
6, 7.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
no,
you
but
should have lethal.
they eat and they jump block, and they kill this.
Right, they
So
eat, jump block, kill, and then okay. Yeah, you're right. I guess it's not guaranteed then. And then they jump again.
well, they jump again, so that's still good.
Yeah.
So we attack first. Which chat asks, what was he studying? He being you.
I was studying business and economics for a little while, and I've been working with a mentor who's helped me with studying the stock market and finance in the last month or two. I guess 2 or 3 months outside of school. Before that, I did psychology for about half a year and decided that wasn't for me. So that's been my schooling thus far.
I see.
I've done about a little over a year of university total, maybe 15 months.
I'm not sure about the strokes here. Because they interact
Yeah,
with the
I'm
like.
usually not in love with stroke, but let's see, how many cards do you want to take out?
Typically, I cut the impulses, but they varying amount. Like this, let's like pull ahead the cards I don't want super hard. The fourth cruise I don't think I want. I want my graveyard cards for my trespass. Some people play on licensed hairs, and then I think I would rather have a braid and fire impulse. But I think otherwise impulse just being cheaper is gonna be a bit better. Axe kills the shredders and ditches phoenixes, I like it. Right now in the list I have 3 spell pieces and 2 disputes. I think that just leaves me with not much space for the strokes. I
Yeah.
I like having a little bit of removal to just for tempo moves with phoenixes. Impulse not super reliable at killing the early shredder, but you'll see late
You
shredder.
might want to consider the young pyromancers. I've actually had a lot of success with pyromancer in the mirror because most of the time you only have to make 2 tokens and the boards get cleared a lot. At the same time, I don't think Arclight is one of the more important cards, and it does kind of demand an answer and helps with your counterspell plan. So I'd consider fitting in 2 of those and maybe cutting.
Would you get 2 phoenixes?
Yeah, I mean, I probably wouldn't cut 2. I mean, I'm okay with cutting 1, but I think I would cut 1 removal spell more, maybe. I think I would cut 1 fire impulse more. That looks good.
Yeah, I've been pretty happy cutting lots of removal spells. What does think about Pyro to me is this card. Kind of free rolling.
Yeah, I mean that can suck for sure. I've had that come up where it's bad, but I think Pyromancer is more like a turn 5 play, where you can leverage it with counter spells or make tokens, and it's kind of like Shredder where it needs to be answered, even though there's a few extra rule spells, and at the same time you're incentivized to cut as many rule spells as you can in the matchup. So I've been impressed with it because I think the 1/1s are often worth like a little more than half a card, which is a lot of the time.
They played an island, which means that you can infer that their hand contains no Spire Bluff Canal.
That is true. It's a good point. And yeah, they have to consider opt.
So it's gonna be either land
It also
light.
sometimes means
Or
they don't have steam vents depending on their hand. Sometimes you have to shock steam vents if you know you're gonna shock, so their hand could be a little different. Okay.
So now likely no third land. Or more
Their only third
Stormcard
land is
Coast. Or
Stormcard Coast.
they just want a pathway. No, I guess if they have a pathway. Well, no, if you have a pathway and you have no play, you could still play the coast. You still will play the coast to delay the decision on the pathway often.
Yeah.
I'll opt in search of either a Shredder to play or a counterspell for pieces.
They're probably Mystical Dispute if this is their range, it would make a lot of sense.
How often do you... So, because you do do think about what's in your opponent's hand a lot, how often do you think about what's in your head and like how your land sequences, for example, like give away
Telegraph
information.
information or what? I think about that a lot. That's why when I was thinking of our turn, I was like, what's the upside of shocking steam vents? Because I think the downside of losing two is kind of low, but I couldn't think of many upsides. So I just was like, not going to mention it. But yeah, it's usually on the forefront of my mind.
Yeah, that's what the like playing the steam vents made me think. Because I was like, yeah, I guess I play the top steam vents because it's obvious with my hand, but like it's not fully
Well, what hands
obvious.
would you not play tap steam vents with? I think most hands you would tap
Yeah,
steam vents because all the interactions 1 mana.
you need to have something weird like in a gate or something. There's two Phoenixes milled with the founding, which is pretty lucky.
Yeah. Yes.
Could play a Shredder, could play pieces, then I overdraw, but guarantee that my pieces resolve. If I play the Shredder, I don't have a way to connive to save it, but they are incentivized to cast a card to make me connive if they don't have an extra removal. And I
I
might
think you
have
should
to
pieces though. I
raise the
mean,
Phoenixes.
it's tough because one interesting thing is if you don't pieces this turn, you're probably not going to have a future window that I can see to one of pieces. Like next turn, it does get a lot worse. And then the other thing is I'm trying to figure out how we can set up a sequence to play on Fiery Impulse and make it so the removal spell has to be Lightning Axe. And we know that our opponent is going to try to cast 3 spells this turn, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they're pretty likely to do that. So in my head right now, I'm thinking maybe we pieces and look for Dispute or Spell Pierce, and then we can set up a sequence of Letter Shredder into removal, holding up Dispute or Spell Pierce.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's going through my head when I'm thinking through how this next turn is going to happen. Like, what can we find off pieces that's super impactful, or what scales are planned because we're kind of behind on board in a turn, I think.
True, and it also doesn't seem to matter too much that I'll overdraw. I'll have a full graveyard for a treasure cruise, and like it's gonna be fine, I
Yeah.
think. If I discard this Stevens, probably. So I'll
Yeah, I
play.
mean, I don't mind the discard. It might be an upside, actually.
Yeah, I play the pieces because that is true. It's gonna be hard to have a window. We found a dispute. We don't even have to discard in the cleanup, thankfully.
Lucky. Yeah. It is pretty lucky not having to discard to hand size. So I think their land, that they need a third land to do stuff this turn, which increases the likelihood that they have Dispute and Spell Pierce. Also, since they missed a land, they might commit 2 spells and then not be able to cast the third spell, which could be good for us.
Mm-hmm.
Could be awkward. How many cards do they have? Can they cruise cleanly off this if they mill?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They have 5 non-Phoenix cards.
It's not very clean.
Tapped hall, pretty nice.
It's a cool spot.
I have 5 non Phoenix cards in my graveyard. I guess I'm kind of incentivized to spend my cards in this turn to be able to iteration cruise on the next one, for example. So I could play Shredder with a tap land or a Shredder with an untapped land in order to do that and pass.
I wasn't sure if you were gonna jump to like maybe I want to cast Cruise this turn, but I was thinking the same idea. I want to try to Galv Cruise and then play the Shredder, and so be it. If the Shredder dies or something, you kind of need to spend your mana because your mana is going to be taxed once you draw 6, and you want to get cards out of your hand.
Mm-hmm.
So playing Shredder and then playing Hall makes sense to me. It would be awkward if they like Fiery Impulse, but it's pretty hard to make that play into like a possible connive trigger. So
How did this Fire Impulse end in the graveyard? Was it from
they
Consider?
milled it with Consider.
Which doesn't really
It was an
tell.
exiled Consider. It was an exiled Consider, and
Yeah.
they milled it.
Which doesn't really tell us that much because they probably ditch anything that's non-land even if they don't have a removal spell. Or like they don't have this specifically.
Well, we knew they drew Hall off of the Consider, like pretty much guaranteed too. And we thought that their range earlier could have contained Spell Piercer Dispute, but they played Founding the third path, which also you'd probably have to play if you don't have as many Consider ops in your hand.
Mm-hmm.
So if I had to look at their range, it seems like they're likely to have Treasure Cruise, Dispute, Lightning Axe, maybe another Fiery Impulse, They could have Shredder. They could have Temporal Trespass. They could have Pieces. It's pretty wide, but like
True,
not such a bad range.
but they unlucky to have opts right now. That's true.
Yes.
Because they cast the Founding on chapter 2 already, also too, on the turn when they cast it. So if I play Shredder and they dispute, should I dispute back? Did this consistent with the idea of spending cards? And the Shredder is also potentially a defense against the Phoenix's returning, if it's gonna survive and be a 2-4.
Yeah,
The
play Shredder.
Cruise is likely to on the range, so I think I want to play Shredder and not dispute back.
Okay, let's play Shredder and not dispute.
We did not dispute back.
This increases their likelihood of having Spell Pierce, yeah.
So I'll take this opportunity to play the tapped hole. And pass, also in the fear of not timing out. What about
Do you think they're
Cruz?
likely to have Spell Pierce? Or no?
Are they likely to have Spell Pierce?
I was thinking if they didn't dispute, then they were more likely to have Spell Pierce, but then they cast Axe, which kind of negates the rationale, so I don't think there's any real implication about their
Yeah,
counterspells.
you would always want to spend the axe, especially discarding Phoenix over the dispute, so they like very well might have the dispute still, or they might not have a counter at all, but you were thinking that they are likely to have a counter on turn 2 given their behavior on turn 2 when they played Island and the Stormcarved Coast, right?
Yeah, that would kind of push me in the direction of not wanting to Axe right now if they just passed, but if they cast a spell. You would probably want to respond. Oh, well, it feels like a Spell Pierce now.
Excuse me?
The fact that they passed instead of casting a spell, which it seemed like they were going to cast, feels like they have Spell Pierce in hand and they were deciding whether to hold that up or not. That's what I was thinking.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So like the Cruise is also likely to be in their hand. They could have like wondered if they want to play the Cruise or not to do so, or hold up a Spell Pierce. Like I personally would almost never want to play Cruise here, so that's kind of weird that I tapped the land. But I think my move is going to be on tap and then.
Yeah, I would not
Axe.
even really think so much about axing now because I don't see the upside with the way our mana is going to be spent right now.
Yeah, I didn't either, but of course I didn't consider cruising here, axing here. I'm just playing slowly to consider all the options.
They have 2 hulls, an island, and a storm-carved coast. They could easily have Trespass. That's a good draw too. Really good one.
And it's not a bad draw. So you're gonna axe, discard Steam Vents, Iteration, Cruise. How many cards does that put me at? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
1 minus Phoenix.
Gonna be 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, I was wondering about my hand size. We're gonna be 8 cards in hand.
I think 7 because they're gonna probably have to counter this treasure cruise, and you're gonna have to spend spell pierce if you want. Maybe you're deciding if you want to do that, but I think it makes sense. If nothing, yeah, you're right. 8.
Yeah. Would you have played a red pathway here? I think probably.
No, I would play blue.
Okay. Yeah, probably. Like you want the pathway on blue like 90% of the time at least. This tends to be pretty punishing
right.
late in the game if you. I guess I have 2 red sources, yeah. Sometimes I just try to, I think, maybe a little bit subconsciously try to make sure my lands look pretty and evenly rather than like have them be good at times, which would make me want to discard the, I think you don't need the second hole. Would make me to want to play red pathway here, right, to make it more even, but it's a poor reason. So I'm going to, well, so they're probably going to follow the cruise, and out of those two I would rather counter cruise.
I think so too. I think I might ignore this.
Now they find dispute, play land, and dispute and cruise, play land. Just Razek cruise and mystical dispute and plays a Spirebluff Canal. Okay.
I was gonna say if they cast Cruise first, I might dispute it because of the 3 Phoenixes.
Mm-hmm. I've got Lying Iteration in my graveyard, so I'll keep
Seems
this.
great. Wow. Now, like next turn, the turn after this, it seems like you're gonna be able to threaten to kill with Hull. That's what I'd be thinking.
Yes, so I think I will cast a Brick Combat, because Fueling my graveyard seems better than...
Yeah.
Interesting. So my goal right now is to trade as many cards as possible. I would like to make a land drop this turn and the next turn, so I keep those two. So I can discard one of the 3 counters, Cruise, Hazard, or a Impulse. And I think they also...
Which yeah, that makes sense. Which you think are worse between those? Like to me, the counters seem like the clear cards to keep because I think there's very little diminishing returns on having 3 in this situation. Like
yeah, I
they're
also
all going to
think
be.
so. I
pretty
think
effective.
like it's between those 3 cards mostly, of which I probably
I don't think Cruise is going to be good, but it gives off a lot of information to discard Cruise and tells your opponent what's up if they're keen. Like I would infer that they have Time Walk going.
Mm-hmm. True. Yeah.
So that maybe pushes me to discard something like Spikefield or Fiery, and I think I'm interested to hear what you think is better.
I think Impulse is gonna be better. So I'll keep the
it's
Impulse,
better.
discard the Hazard. Because they have
Yeah.
3 Phoenixes, so maybe clearing one is gonna be relevant for getting for the damage in the extra turns. Or if they play Shredder, I can play it on the Shredder. If they play Shredder second spell, I can kill the Shredder with the Echo Knife.
You really want to aggro dispute their spells now. I mean,
Yes.
kind of intuitive, but you're probably going to fire it off if they cast any real spell.
I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 non-iteration cards in my graveyard. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 mana, so I will have one protection. So if this is a Treasure Cruise, which we know they have, we're gonna cast a Mystical Dispute on it. Because they grabbed Cruise.
They dispute. Are you going to dispute back?
They dispute. I am going to dispute back, I think.
Okay.
No, wait. We dispute with this. Then they dispute back. I can pay. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Paying is not good as I want to have... No. Yes, paying is not good. I want to have multiple cards in my graveyard.
Isn't paying fine?
No, because I will need 9 cards in my graveyard, right? Iteration plus 8 cards for trespass.
Yeah, we get 8. We get 7 after this, and then we could cast Fiery Impulse, but then we can't hold up the 3rd counter, which is a little awkward. Yeah.
Well, no, if my opponent disputes back and I pay for their dispute, right, then I can't put an extra card into my graveyard this turn, so next turn I have iteration trespass, but I don't have a counterspell to protect, which sounds not good.
Do you want to let this happen, or do you want to just dispute their cruise here and leave up 2?
I could also spell pierce the cruise.
That is true. Spell piercing cruise could be good. It doesn't accomplish a ton though. I guess it taps them down pretty
Well,
low. Do they have a land drop?
They have a land drop available, yeah.
Okay.
So the thing is that if I cast a dispute on this, like if this counters, then I cast dispute on this, and they pay, then it's good for me, but if they don't pay, and they have 2 counters on their own, like, are 2 counters on the range?
I think you should probably dispute it over spell piercing it because it's so awkward for them. Then you'd have land into a 1-drop to return the 3 phoenixes, right?
Yeah. And if they spend an extra counter, that's also fine because I'm trading a counter for a counter, which is also consistent with my goal. Yeah.
I mean, if they play another counter, it's okay. Well, their counter has to be exactly dispute, right? It can't even be spell pierce, which we thought was in their range earlier.
Mm-hmm. Lava Glide Pathway, pieces, resolves. Hoping they don't mill the 4th Phoenix, although I don't know if it actually does much. They got pieces of the puzzle and consider.
Now the question is, how many phoenixes are they going to attack with? If they attack with any, I think we probably win. They probably have to attack with none.
We kill 1 Phoenix, then I attack them. Oh, let's see how many they attack with.
Pretty tricky to find the line of attacking with 0 here for the opponent. Okay. Guess not.
There's a reason to holding this. If they trade, then it's gonna be an extra spell.
Yeah, but it's also a discount for the treasure cruise, and I think we're going to cast the treasure cruise after that turn.
It is.
Right. Want to attack first? Yeah. They could still have the spell pierce based on the way they're playing, which wouldn't be so bad for us.
No attacks, no blocks.
It is funny, but I guess it makes sense to not.
So I'll cast the opt
Like
to
opting. Yeah. Looking for pieces or something.
Shredder.
Ooh.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Can't play Shredder and Cruise.
You can cast Cruise for 6 and then play Shredder, which isn't great, but might be better than the alternative.
What if I attack with the hold twice? They block, and they go to 5. Not good.
What do you think? It's pretty close. I think either way is fine.
I'll keep it. Seems fine. It's no pieces, but it's also no. It's also a playable card.
Dark Ritual.
Dark Ritual. So we play Shredder. We play this. We go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
I don't think they have a counter, right? It's just impossible. So we can maybe pitch the spell pierce. Ooh,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Does this help?
not in this. Well, if we hit a land, it helps. I'll have to consider exactly. I think it's better than spell pierce, though.
It would need to be really tricky not to spell pierce. Yeah, I mean, I think it does like it makes sense to infer that the spell pierce is not good for me. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Is this good? Wait, is it good? You put them to 8. You have lethal, or no? 3, 4, 5, and then you have to find a phoenix off of cards. I guess you can mill it. It's pretty close though.
If we keep it, kill Phoenix, attack, they go to 8, and next turn I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I have non-lethal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Yeah, it's not lethal.
But
But
you
you have
also
a lot
get
of looks at
a
lethal.
cruise, and you can get a land
Yes.
plus removal too for the second Phoenix, because they
I
need
think
not
you
to
should keep
block.
it.
I think we keep it.
Yeah, the sequence is pretty clean.
How do you define a clean sequence?
We get to spend all of our resources, right?
All right. Because I used that term
And
a few times,
yeah,
not like something I hear often actually.
I guess I don't know. It just feels clean. That's lethal, right? Let's see. 3. You can triple spike field. Is that off? I guess it's a little off.
But when do I triple spike field? 1, 2, 3,
Next turn, you
4,
have one
5,
more
6,
time.
7. Yeah, but like that seems definitely not lethal to me. I mean, I guess we get the attack.
No,
Okay, we get the attack.
yeah, it's not lethal.
It's almost lethal.
It's actually one off if we hit a spell. So,
It does feel like you what?
okay.
Do you have any? Okay, it makes sense. It does feel like you process like everything way faster than I do.
Huh.
Like I do feel like I'm lagging behind you a little bit because like you're like, oh yeah, it's lethal. I'm like, what?
No, it's not, but it's close.
Yeah, like but not, like don't mean that it's lethal this time, but in general. I mean the Sphinx returns, right? So this is raz, dva, 4, 5, 6. No, it's not. Cognitive decline, maybe.
Eh,
What if I attack them with the hull? What recourse do they have? Well, a pretty obvious one in getting with their own combo. One,
what's the
two,
alternative?
1, 2, 3.
Let's see.
Could have iteration spell piece for their time walk combo, but if they just play normal cards and opts, etc. Could lose to that.
Seems like we should maybe attack with the hull and leave up one spell pierce and hit one time walk and hope it's good enough. You see what, like, I'm not sure what other land we have, because if we put them to 2, then we have the Spike Field Galv, which will for sure be lethal next turn. Versus if we leave up Galv plus Spell Pierce, I can't really imagine
Yeah, I like that.
that being the difference. But it was close to lethal. It's funny. We're one off.
True. Could spell pierce that. But I mean, I don't actually spell pierce the time walk combo because if they have a land drop.
You can't. No, you should wait, right? Because you can Spell Pierce the Time Walk combo even if they pay them. They can't bring back Phoenixes that turn. They'd have to have the Time Walk combo plus a counter, like we did.
True. All the if they play a land time walk combo, then I'll die still because they get that hole. No, I don't.
Yes, it's fine. I think we win.
I think so too.
They could have
But-
spell pierce though.
How does the spell pierce help? I guess they just cast a
Well, they
time
can
walk, spell
cast
pierce.
time walk and then
Yeah, yeah.
spell pierce, and then we lose.
That's actually what they did. They revealed a time walk. They instead
Well, yeah, but
treasure cruise.
now we win. Yeah. Yeah. Now we have the double Galv Spike Field with Spell Pierce line, which let's see, is that better? It's kind of hard to say. Yeah. I guess it doesn't matter.
They have negate. Then I can spell pierce. So I don't see a way for them to stop this. Spell pierce,
Yeah, I think it's
pay, fine.
Yeah.
And a Greco knife. Plan says that it was a pleasure despite the 10 minutes differential on the clock between
We definitely took our sweet time in the matches, but I think the lines were interesting. It was a hard game too.
yeah, it's like really informative. Yeah, like it's really good to play with you and to talk with you.
Yeah, same as well. I appreciated it, and yeah, I mean, I thought it was interesting to also hear your perspective, and glad I got to share some of mine.
Yeah, you certainly seem to have a mind of a powerful magician. So, like, I definitely will wish you all the best luck in your upcoming adventures, Magic the Gathering wise.
Hey to you. Good luck in Sofia as a tournament. That sounds fun, and I'll be competing in my Arsenal week as well. Same weekend, I think.
Exactly, you play in Atlanta is the same weekend.
Yeah.
All right. What about when opponent does not miss land drop and then plays free tap lands? Says Zerg4 in the chat. He's a very, very snarky individual, so he always just tries to find the least positive side of the coin available in the chat and present it in the very stingy way.
Well, the good thing was, despite that happening, we were kind of behind in that game. I don't remember the early turns so well, but what I do remember was there was just like a lot of tricky sequences because they had the triple Phoenix to R1, and we kind of had to fight from behind. I think that game was not trivial to like come up with how we were going to sequence our counter spells and like make sure that their counter spells were less effective. Because if I remember correctly, we still had that spare counter spell, which could have easily been the difference maker, like depending on how the game played out.
Yes. I agree. I agree with you. That was an interesting game. I do like that's one also in regards to sideboarding. That's one of the dangers of what I fear a little bit is having the Phoenix disadvantage can hurt a bunch in some spots. It feels like with less Phoenixes in your deck, you're of course more likely to be at a disadvantage in the number of Phoenixes. Although it does seem like the time of combo often will trump. That's it's an interesting point to consider.
Yeah, I mean, it was true that that game the Phoenixes felt like a reasonable advantage, but at the same time, I think um, as the games go on and like you're both playing towards time walk combo, the Phoenixes matter a lot less. I mean, I don't know. It's a hard dynamic to balance. I don't think it's clear that you want to cut any Phoenixes, but I certainly wouldn't cut more than one depending on my configuration.
All right. All right. I'll be finishing the stream soon. So once again, thank you, Nathan, for joining me. It was a pleasure. Twitch chatters, if you would like to be schooled by Nathan like I just did, can go to what's the link exactly? Metafy.com.
Yeah, it's Metafy / Nathan Steuer. Maybe it's Nathan Steuer one of the two.
I'm
Very helpful, but thank
posting
you.
a link in the
I
chat
really
right now.
appreciate it.
He does offer coaching where he can spend time with you and discuss Magic with you and walk through your replays, preferably, because as you see, the live games are pretty hard to play with a second person on call at times. And for me, it was a very enlightening session, and it was really educational, I think. And again, it was a pleasure to have a reigning world champion visiting on my stream. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me on the stream. And it was a pleasure as well. I'm happy to come on anytime and chat some more. But have a great rest of your day, and thank you for being a great host.
All right, goodbye. Oh, I think I cut him in middle of the goodbye, which was kind of awkward, but I sometimes do that. Thank you for watching today, chat. Did you enjoy the stream? I found it pretty fun. As I said, it was pretty great. Did I boil my brain? A little bit. I did also feel a little bit under the scrutiny with having Nathan watch my plays and discuss and say stuff and be like, oh yeah, well here actually we could do XYZ. And I'm like, don't want to perform the least good play available and make myself look like a fool either, right? Nobody wants that. But I think you taught him more. Well, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not sure. I wouldn't say so. You already have Twitch chat scrutinize your plays. What is different? Well, I think the quality is a bit different. But yeah, he was also a really good person to talk to and like really open-minded, Magic the Gathering wise. Can just like, I think that does help a lot in being successful at the game of Magic the Gathering, kind of being like humble in front of your ideas, not thinking that you are the bee's knees, the best ever, and that you're unassailable. Certainly like something that was in my mindset early during my Magic career. But for today, that is going to be everything. I will upload the stream to YouTube.
He's a phenomenal control player.
I hope I recorded the voices too. But I made sure that it's supposed to be like that, so hopefully I did. Thank you everybody for the subs. And see you tomorrow. No, see you on Thursday. One more thing to say. Could move it up to the upload priority. Yes, I will. One more thing to say that I have is that on
control player.
Thursday, I will be doing a session with Misplaced Ginger. We're gonna be playing Phoenix versus Red Black, and also probably discussing the matchup a little bit. So that is going to happen on Thursday in the afternoon too. So that is up in store in regards to the content. And for now, we're going to choose a victim to raid. Also, Gilly15 and Nihai Dialonoyol, thank you very much for the subs. Do you think Derek will be as open-minded and humble as young Nathan? Yes. Can raid demonic tutors. Sounds like a good raid victim. See you Thursday, broskies.